Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Alex Cuesta Daily Show. How is everybody doing on this Monday, May 2nd of 2022? Before we get into anything fun, like, share, follow, subscribe, rate 5 stars on Spotify and iTunes. Spread this word of mouth. Go find us on socials. Just go search the Alex Cuesta Show. We shall be there. Now, I have to say, it's been a while since I talked to everybody, and I apologize for that. Last time you had a show was when me and David did our draft show on Wednesday, which was lots of fun talking about the Jets, a lot of possibilities we talked about. We saw come true. Things happen for the Jets that I don't think we imagined would happen. I will go over that in a little bit, but essentially, the reason why I didn't record on Thursday or Friday, there's no magic reason. The draft happened. That's really all it is. I got caught up watching the draft both nights, rounds 1, 2, and 3. I am a big Jets fan, and I watched a draft, and I was like, I'm tired. I'm not going to go record after watching the draft. And there was a lot of excitement if you're a Jets fan for the first 2 days of the draft. But we're going to jump into the Biden COVID tracker first because I have a lot of housekeeping to do here. I am not going to go over each individual day and bore the shit out of everybody talking all these numbers because there was a lot of numbers and there's a lot to go over. So I'm going to kind of give you, I guess, a little analysis of the numbers. If you want me to post them up, I sure can. Maybe I will. Since I've been gone for so long, I can post up where we're at. What's the plus minus? Maybe, I don't know. Maybe I won't. I don't think people are as concerned. My whole concern is holding this man accountable. So let's go. Last time we were around with each other on the 27th of what was it? May now? April, 27th of April. Jesus Christ. We were at 81,043,315 cases, and we were at 991,609 deaths. So in terms of cases, as of today on the 2nd, I'll tell you where we are. We're at 81,325,716 cases. And we've jumped to 993,588 deaths. So that's over the last 5 days. We've gotten about a bump of a little over 250,000 in cases. But in terms of deaths, it's maybe sitting around 2,000. It's weird with these numbers. And I'm not going to say that I don't trust the numbers. A lot of people don't trust what's going on. I can't say. I mean, I don't know if I trust much of what the government does, and I don't care who's in power. The government is usually trying to pull some shit, but I think it's tough for them to gather these numbers, especially now that everybody's not as crazy about the pandemic, and especially since the corporate and major leftist news networks don't give a shit about it anymore. They had to be semi-accurate or at least be more open. I'm not even going to say accurate. These numbers are not accurate. We know that they're not. There's less PCP tests being run. It's a lot of rapid test positives that are going in, and then they run the PCP. And what are they going to count? I don't know what their criteria is for counting a positive. It's never truly been clear what their criteria is for including it as a death. But I just have to trust the numbers that we're provided with. And, right now, deaths are not tracking with the number of quote unquote case upticks. We have been seeing a slight uptick, but it's weird. We go from an uptick of almost 60,000 to an uptick of close to 90, back down to 60, down to about 10. And now we're up to about 65,000 cases at more today. So I don't know if it's just, I've said it before, if it's the weekend, and I don't know if the government people take a break on the weekend and they come in to gather all their shit again on Monday, get it together and start dumping it out and spreading it out on Tuesday. I don't know what goes on, but there were a few days where there were no counts for deaths. I think 3 of them here, which again is a little bizarre. We're still calling this a pandemic. Dr. Fauci, who I'll discuss, that beautiful man, Lord Fauci came out and said, we are past the pandemic phase, but then backtrack and said, but we're no means out of the pandemic. Yeah, we are, motherfucker. This is an endemic. We are in an endemic. Denmark is the first country to stop their vaccination program, their active vaccination program of encouraging and basically forcing people to get it. And they continue to call this an endemic. Denmark is not calling this a pandemic anymore. It is an endemic. We are at that phase. Now, don't get it twisted for everyone out there like championing, like, oh, Denmark's doing a great thing, not forcing people to get vaxxed. They said they could pick this back up in the fall where a lot of these type of diseases typically start to build back up again. In the summer, when you're outside, you're getting the sun coming in. The one thing that has been said from the beginning that has a direct impact on coronavirus is the sun. And getting out there, that has a direct impact. And the best thing to kill coronavirus and keep it away is to be outside and in the sun. So I digress with that, but we are at an endemic phase. Only reason I continue to do this is because they continue to call it a pandemic. They continue to hold on to the emergency pandemic powers. And that is absolute bullshit and unacceptable in my eyes. It is very unacceptable because it gives Biden loose powers to do a lot and order a lot of different things and affect our lives. And I don't like it. And he also came in as a man with a plan, and he has sucked every which way. Whether it's COVID, whether it's Afghanistan, whether it's right now in Ukraine, where he is slowly but surely still trying to inch us into World War III. And that won't be fun. Won't be fun for anybody. But that's the Biden COVID tracker. I'll be back tomorrow to hopefully update this daily again, unless something really piques my interest. But the goal is to be back tomorrow. So that's always the goal, to come back every day. But let's jump into one of the things that the thing that stopped me from recording the last 2 days, the New York Jets draft. I have to talk a little bit positively about my Jets. Usually super negative, usually. But Joe Douglas hit it out of the fucking park. General manager of the New York Jets, Joe Douglas, hit this one out of the park. They came into the draft with 2 picks within the top 10, the number 4 and number 10. A lot of discussion on whether or not the Jets go out and trade for Deebo Samuel, the disgruntled San Francisco 49ers receiver. All reports were that they attempted to do it and the Niners weren't interested. I think it was that number 10 and a 5th round pick, and they wanted Deebo Samuel and a 2nd round pick back. Niners weren't interested, and they said they turned their phones off once it got to pick 10, that they weren't listening. They didn't care anymore. Not only did they do that, on day number two, they go out and they get another impact player on the 2nd round. Let's talk about the players. So first off, pick number 4, they had a chance of pulling from a bunch of guys. They went cornerback and got Ahmad Sauce Gardner, cornerback from Cincinnati, who didn't give up a single touchdown his whole entire collegiate career, 3 years starting in Cincinnati. And Cincinnati plays decent talent. It's not like they play all scrubs. They had a pretty damn good team last year, and no touchdowns given up. And he was guarding the best guy every single time. Then we move into number 10, and the Jets go and get their wide receiver for Zach Wilson. They get him some help. Garrett Wilson, wide receiver from Ohio State. Big time player. A lot of people had him as the best wide receiver on their board, and definitely top 2 or 3. Sauce Gardner, again, a lot of people had him as the best corner on the board. A few people had Derek Stingley ahead of him, Darren Stingley ahead of him early on, especially, but Sauce Gardner jumped up. So right there, arguably the 2 best players in their positions off the board for the Jets. Then, surprisingly, he trades back into the 1st round at number 26 as he saw Jermaine Johnson II, talented pass rusher from Florida State, dropping exponentially, gets back in, picks him up at 26. A guy that a lot of people had on their big boards, 15 or under, a lot of them top 10 talent. The Jets needed pass rushing help. Oh, they got it. Carl Lawson should be back. And now you have this guy on the other side. Fantastic. We jump into the 2nd round, start of day 2. The Jets used one of their picks to go up and grab Jermaine Johnson. They were sitting at 38 after this. What does Joe Douglas do? Wheels and deals, trades again, goes up 2 spots to go get Breece Hall, running back from Iowa State, on everybody's big board. I don't think it's an exception. The best running back in the draft. 41 touchdowns the last 2 years, 1,000 yards each year. The guy's a freak. Everyone is looking at it saying this guy is possibly going to be a top 15 back in the NFL. And that's to go with Michael Carter, who showed an extremely promising year and one of the stars of last year on the offense. Very talented. So now is a 2-headed monster of potential 1,000-yard backs who can also both catch the football out of the backfield. But Joe Douglas wasn't done. In round 3, number 101, which was part of the trade with getting back into the 1st round, he goes out and gets Jeremy Ruckert, tight end, Ohio State. And interestingly enough, He grew up a Jets fan. And if you watch a video, go look at something that wants to make you happy. Go watch Jeremy Ruckert, tight end, being drafted in his house. The response from not only his family, but his dad, who's obviously a Jets fan. It'll tear you up because it's a beautiful moment to see a guy who grew up a Jets fan going to play in his favorite team. Obviously, the family's favorite team. It was a huge moment, a beautiful moment, and it was awesome. Jump into round 4 at pick number 111. They get Max Mitchell from an old lineman from Louisiana. Now, there's another cool moment with the Jets. The scout that discovered Max Mitchell got to make the phone call to let him know that he's coming to the Jets. That's a cool moment. And then at 117, the Jets traded. They had a 5th round pick, traded out, got into the 4th, ended their draft picking their 7th player, Michael Clements, defensive lineman, Texas A&M. So let's look. Let's get a quick analysis of what Joe Douglas did here. Needed help at corner, got their best corner in the draft, arguably. Needed help at receiver, got the best receiver in the draft, arguably. Needed help on defense, got most people consider a top 15 talent in the whole draft, not just rushers, top 15, and one of the better pure pass rushers in the draft in Jermaine Johnson. He addressed the 3 biggest holes right away in the 1st round, got him out the way. 3 biggest with 3 talented players. He comes back and gets, bar none, the best running back in the draft early in the 2nd round. And if you watch, they have the reactions of the Jets draft room. All 4 of these picks, they were all standing, pumped as shit to get these guys. Extremely pumped. There is no excuse anymore for Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson needs to have a good football season. If he does not have a good football season, I think I said it to David, they need to get rid of him. I don't care if it's only 2 years. If he does not have a very good year with all the weapons he has around him, he's not an NFL quarterback. Do I think Zach Wilson's going to have a poor year? No, I don't. I think he had made good strides last year. Not having a turnover the last 5 games is huge. Forget all the numbers. Besides that, not having a turnover is huge because even if you're trying to manage a game and be a game manager, it is difficult to not have that turnover if the game is moving too quickly for you, regardless. And the game, he made some throws the last 5 games. It's not like he just sat back and only dumped down. So to see Zach Wilson not have that last year, hopefully he takes that extra step. The game slows down a little more, and all of these talented guys around him will be able to help him out. You look at 101, Ruckert was considered more of a blocking tight end at Ohio State. You look at the guys he had around him. He had Garrett Wilson. He had Olave. He had a lot of talent around him. But apparently when he got the ball in his hands and when he had a chance to make catches, he made catches. Now he's coming in behind CJ Uzomah and Tyler Conklin, who are both talented, but there's a chance for Ruckert to make an impact. And then the last 2 picks, Max Mitchell and Michael Clements. Mitchell's considered a project on the line, and Michael Clements considered a pretty good guy from Texas A&M that could be a special teamer and maybe get some rotation time. So there you go. He made an impact. Joe Douglas made an impact with every single one of his picks. Arguably, maybe the last 2 were just, but I trust the scouts. I trust the scouts that the Jets have. And it's a weird situation as a Jets fan to be here because you never hear positive stuff being talked about the Jets. And this is way, way too positive for my liking. There's every pundit, every single one has given the Jets an extremely high rating, has lauded Joe Douglas for his picks, especially the top 4. There's a lot of people coming out and saying Breece Hall may be the most exciting and best player in this draft from the Jets. It's weird because you don't win championships on draft day. You don't win it in free agency. You don't win it on your depth chart and on paper. But man, it can make you feel good as a fan. Because you know what? If all else fails, if you're Joe Douglas, if you're Robert Saleh, if you're a Jets fan, you cannot look back at this draft and say, we didn't fucking go for it. You cannot look back at this offseason and say that Joe Douglas didn't try. If this group fails, it won't be from lack of trying by the front office. This is a player's issue. This might be a coaching issue as well. If Saleh doesn't do well, he doesn't get better as a head coach. If LaFleur doesn't get better as a coordinator, even though he was a great offensive coordinator last year, if Ulbrich doesn't call a better defense, this could all fall on coaching. But in terms of personnel, Joe Douglas has done his job for all intents and purposes. Now it's time for the players to do their jobs, and it's time for the coaches to do theirs. I'm excited about Jets football. for the first time in a long time. It's a dangerous place to be. But yeah, that's the draft. I'm pumped about it if you can't tell. And I'm never pumped about Jet shit. I'm usually depressed. So this is good news, but I'm a Jets fan. I'm timid about it because I'm waiting for the other shoe to fall. I'm waiting for disaster. So before we jump into any stories, I want to go in with a little personal anecdote here. It's personal in the sense that I guess because I stumbled across it. So I'm on all the socials. I'm on, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, all of it. And on Facebook, you come across some people that just love to put up politics and other people, the regular people that debate them, argue them. And it's usually in good fun. They're usually close friends that do it. And, it's pretty heated debates because everything's political. But for the most part, barely civil. If the jabs are had, they're had. It's not anything egregious or vicious for the most part because they always come back and they always tell each other, you'll see it all the time with these two individuals. I'm not going to say any names here, but they always come back and tell each other how much they respect each other, how much they like each other, how good of friends they are. And it's true. And if you know them, they're people from my high school teachers, that these two individuals are very good friends. So this was another typical moment where one individual who is a leftist posted something about history and being a race and this and that. And the other who commented, who I don't know if he considers himself on the right, but he certainly is logical, which logic falls on the right now because the left has gone fucking insane. But he made a comment about not tearing down Christopher Columbus statues, etc., and AOC being a psycho and critical race theory and this and that. And there was some back and forth. And then there was another teacher who I didn't know very well at the high school. I didn't know this individual very well at all. And they were there. I think they were there towards the end, but I never had a chance to have them. And now I'm pretty happy I didn't. They come in and they start talking about how they have a doctorate and they passed the oral and written exam on American studies. That's one of their first things. And to me, that's one of my biggest fucking pet peeves. I don't give a shit about your educational credentials. When you lead with your educational credentials, that's usually you already trying to insert yourself and say, I am smarter than you on said topic. Sit the fuck back and listen. And to me, that's awful. That's a terrible way to go about things. That's an elitist, shitty way to go about it. And they went on to proceed and say, if you can't recite the Bell and Crenshaw off the top of your head, then you don't know what critical race theory is. And along the lines of something like that. But it just rubbed me the wrong way. And then offended him at the end saying, like, oh, I don't know you. I feel bad knowing this you. You know what? On behalf of him, fuck you. Like that's terrible. To me, that's terrible. Putting in your credentials, especially to an individual who is one of the experts in his field. He is an extremely intelligent individual, and not only intelligent in the sense of knowing his field in terms of his area of study, but also in being able to connect with high schoolers and teach them some difficult shit. When I tell you extremely difficult stuff and connect with a bunch of high schoolers and make this difficult stuff learnable, and you're saying you're being disrespectful to this individual, how dare you? Like, it's laughable for you to throw out your credentials to try and demean this person. I mean, those things piss me off. And again, if you know about the writings of Derek Bell and Kimberly Crenshaw on critical race theory, number one, it's not fucking hard to find out. It's not hard to read. It's not hard to read about Kimberly Crenshaw mapping the margins and intersectionality and the Conahee River Collective, which he named critical race theory. It's not hard to read or find Derek Bell and his depressing fucking race relations and race studies, where he's basically a segregationist still. But if you know about that, then you know about critical pedagogy because they both believe in it. They both fall in the same line. You know about Delgado talking about critical race theory in the book about what is critical race theory, essentially. I forget who the co-author is, but Delgado is one of the main guys. And he flat out says there's a critical pedagogy. They're trying to push this into education. If you're so keen and you know about critical race theory and the studies, then you know about the critical pedagogy going into schools. And you know about Paulo Freire and Henry Giroux. And you know about all this. If you know all this shit, and you still believe in it, and you're an educator, you do not belong being an educator. You need to leave because you're not trying to educate kids anymore. You're trying to create activists. So I think that's what grinded my gears just as much, is the fact that not only is this individual elitist and pompous enough to lead with their educational credentials like it fucking means anything, they also throw out names trying to look smart and trying to demean this other individual who deserves utmost respect, but they throw out these names trying to look fucking smart. And it's just more embarrassing because that means you do know about them. And that means you do know about the postmodernist Marxist belief system that goes with this shit. And if you know about it and you're not raging against it, then that means you believe in it. And that means you don't belong in education. I had to get that off my chest. I was going to leave a comment, and I don't argue on the internet really anymore. I do on Twitter every once in a while when I get caught up. I feel like a fucking moron each time, but I really don't do it on Facebook because Facebook is as much of a cesspool. And the worst part about Facebook is you mostly know the people you're fighting with. But I was going to leave some long comment basically saying what I just said, but man, it's not worth it. But that's why also I have a podcast, because honestly, fuck people like that. Anyone like that, anyone that leads with their educational credentials to enter into a debate automatically should just be told to fuck off and leave, because nobody cares. Nobody cares. It's not hard to read this shit. It's boring. It's extremely boring. And it's also it's the same. It's disgusting to read. It's a warped theory to read, but it's not difficult to find. It's not hard to read. And you know what? If you don't feel like reading it, go listen to James Lindsay on New Discourses. He breaks it down and he tells the truth about it because he reads it from their fucking mouths in their books and they hate him for it. Go listen to New Discourses podcast. He breaks it all down. He'll read you directly from the books. He's read whole papers before, just so he interprets them as he goes, but he reads the whole thing. So, man, I just hate that type of stuff. And I had to get that off my chest because that was pissing me off. All right. And another thing about pissing me off, because you have people, this is the same vein as this individual who comes in there and leads with their educational credentials because they're doctorates and they're past their oral and written exam and they're on their way and nobody gives a fuck. But these are the same type of people that attended the White House Correspondents' Dinner. Yes, that awesome thing is back. Now, the headline that I found, which kind of sparked my interest in this, from the Post Millennial, written by, who are you written by? Ari Hoffman. It is Fauci bails on White House Correspondents' Dinner, citing personal risk, attends crowded pre-parties maskless. Anyway, great article from the Post Millennial here. Fauci whining about, I'm not going to go there. It could be a super spreader event, individual assessment of personal risk, but had no problem going to the pre-party where basically all the same people were there. It was crowded. And he has pictures with Don Lemon maskless, with individuals in the back with masks on. It's so stupid. And they do this game. You know what the thing is too? And there were jokes made. I guess Trevor Noah is the lead guy, and he made a joke that's a distinguished super spreader event. And, Fauci dropped out, but Davidson said it's okay. So, I mean, making all those jokes about indoor like, here's a quote. Do you continue to read your own newspapers? Do any of you read your own newspapers? You guys spent the last 2 years telling everyone the importance of wearing masks and avoiding large indoor gatherings. Then the second someone offers you free dinner, you all turn into Joe Rogan. I get, definitely got laughs. But that's because these people think less of all of us. They really think they're on top. They really think they're better than all of us. They really do, because he's not wrong. Jokes are funny because they're true most of the time. And the reason why this is true is because all these motherfuckers have been saying this exact thing. Always wear your masks and avoid large indoor events. But where are they doing? They're all maskless, with our 79-year-old president, who was also there maskless, sitting next to each other, eating dinner, laughing, definitely out spitting, talking loud, drinking. And that's okay. Again, I don't give a fuck what they do. I thought it was okay at the beginning of the pandemic. I thought it was okay at the height of the pandemic. Make your own goddamn choices. But for people to be so hypocritical, they think we're a bunch of peasants, along with Anthony Fauci. They don't think anything of us, the common people. They don't give a shit. They're the worst type of people. Absolute worst, including Trevor Noah, including Joe Biden, because he's there yucking it up with them too. And then that motherfucker is going to go pretend and wear a mask places. Like, it's awful. It really is terrible. They're all hypocrites. all the people that attended that party from any of the leftist news networks, they're a bunch of hypocrites. And, and Fauci's another one. He's okay to go to parties with his mask off, but then he's not going to go here. And then people were saying, what are we doing? Dr. Fauci won't go to this. So why are we still having it? But then they don't care about the people that went to the pre-parties. Like, it's a clown show. It really is. And none of these people deserve respect, top to bottom. They don't deserve it. They don't deserve it from us anymore. It's just an embarrassment. But the thing I wanted to get into today, having to do with embarrassing, having to do with not trusting. See how beautiful I planned this? They all kind of fall into each other. So the Biden administration, through its Department of Homeland Security, decided that they wanted to do some 1984 shit out in the open. There's no other way to describe it. They created a Disinformation Governance Board. Disinformation Governance Board. Tell me that doesn't sound like Ministry of Truth from 1984. And tell me this doesn't sound like a wrongthink government agency. And on top of that, the person they pegged, Nina Jankowicz, to lead it, has been flat out in the open spewing bullshit. She said the Hunter Biden laptop was Russian disinformation. Hasn't came out and said anything after that it was, that it wasn't. Now that it's coming out there saying that it was true. She sang on a TikTok video about Mary Poppins with supercalifragilistic. Like, I don't know. Like, we could listen to it here. I don't know if I want to. I don't know if I want to expose you guys here because I'm not gonna expose you to this because it's terrible. Like, this woman spreads propaganda. We put in a propagandist. People were saying, she's a political operative. She's a propagandist. We're putting in a propagandist to lead a board that's supposed to be about disinformation. It's not surprising. It's not surprising that they're doing this, especially the leftists. Of course, they want a propagandist in there. But the best part comes with Secretary Mayorkas, the Homeland Security Secretary, who was overseeing this, obviously, because DHS is his. He defends her and he's saying this is great. And she's objective. And then he goes on to say, let me find the quote, because this article's from Mayorkas claims new DHS's Disinformation Board will not monitor U.S. citizens. It's by Mark Moore. It's from the New York Post. Let's see where he talks about it. Apparently it won't monitor American citizens, and it is supposed to address connectivity between threats and acts of violence and address without infringing free speech, protecting civil rights and civil liberties and rights of privacy. So that sounds all flowery. They said all the right things. He said all the right things there. And it's gathering best practices against. Oh, here we go. Mayorkas said that the administration could have done a better job communicating how the board will function, noting that it will examine disinformation from Russia, China, and the cartels that smuggle people and drugs into the U.S. when any are perceived to be a threat to national security. So what does that say there? It's still going on that the former President Donald Trump was quite literally almost framed as a Russian agent due to a bogus dossier that the FBI knew wasn't on the up and up when they got it from Christopher Steele. The guy was kicked. Christopher Steele, what people forget to tell you now, is that he used to work for the American government. He was kicked out for lying because he was falsifying sources. And this is the guy they bring back to get the dossier from. People forget to bring that up. It was brought up a ton during the height of the dossier. We need to bring it back up. And note, this dossier was enough for the FBI, who knew it was false, to get reports to surveil people from the Trump campaign, from the FISA courts. And this thing is they're noting to examine disinformation from Russia, China, and cartels about be national security. Excuse me? So what would have happened if this was in place while Donald Trump was being falsely accused of being a Russian agent? I'll tell you what would have happened. Anybody and everybody on the right on social media on the radio, on television, that would have been taking the Steele dossier apart one by one, which they did. They did. If anyone listens to conservative media, they took apart the Steele dossier mere months after it was put out. Mere months after it was put out, it was taken apart and discredited and disproved over and over and over again. But that wouldn't have been allowed to happen. Understand what this would do. They still call anybody on the right that voices their opinion negatively against the leftist policies that they want, against any critical theory, against gender studies, against LGBTQ bullshit, against critical race theory, any of this stuff. They just say they're a bunch of racist Nazis who are Russian Kremlin people and this and that. And all these people would have been looked at. They are going to now be looked at. Just think of the power that this group holds, and think of that loophole that Mayorkas and the government just provided a propagandist in Nina Jackowicz to have. The power that she has is, it's not going to investigate American citizens. Bullshit. Bullshit. It's not going to monitor American citizens. Because what is it going to happen? What's going to happen? All it's going to say is, they've been saying Tucker Carlson is an agent of the Kremlin. They've been spewing that. What's it going to take for them to say, you know what? There's enough here for us to look into that. And we need to now start monitoring Tucker Carlson. And we think he's done enough to bring him into question. What's it going to take for that? Or, anyone. Glenn Beck's another one. Popular. If you are popular and hold any sort of power on the right, you are now about to be fucked by this. It's going to be terrible. It's going to be terrible. And the issue is, like the Democrats do all the time, they didn't think this through. Because while most people on the right would come into power and not use this, if these dumb motherfuckers just gave Donald Trump this power, if he comes back as the president, do you not think he is going to sit there and use this agency to absolutely obliterate the leftist media as it should be obliterated? Am I saying that right? Obliterate? Maybe. Obliterate, not obliterate. He's going to obliterate them. They are going to be no more by their own doing. This is bad. A ministry of truth in a society based on free speech is bad, but let's not forget who we're dealing with. We are dealing with a group of people who don't actually believe in free speech. They have gotten away from Enlightenment rationalism. They are not people of the liberal order anymore. We are dealing with people who believe in neo-Marxist stuff. They don't believe in the American theory. There's no other way to put it. They don't believe in the American experiment. They say all the right things. They know what to say, but they don't. They don't. You can't be making this fucking this transparently board that will abuse free speech and freedoms of Americans. You cannot be making this and still claim to give a shit about freedom and free speech and what the American founding is. So this is terrible. Go read the article in the New York Post. They map it out pretty well. Go look this up some more. Mayorkas did a whole bunch of news to try and talk about this, and it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing that this is allowed to happen. That Joe Biden's in office and essentially it is being run by everyone else that wants to get shit done, that they know they can't get done most other ways. November can't come soon enough so that the Republicans can hopefully destroy the left and maybe get some guys with backbones and ladies with backbones in there so they can lead the charge against a lot of this bullshit. Because, man, this ain't good. I'm scared for this shit. This is the type of stuff that scares me. A lot of the things that are going on scares me because you can't have this in a free society. You can't have a ministry of truth in a free society, what you're allowed to say, what you're not allowed to say. I don't know. There's so much to be said about this, but I don't want to take too much longer. Just know, go look this up. This is bad. There's no other way to put it. They can put rose-colored glasses on it. They could say it's only going to be used in national security, that it's going to be used to talk about disinformation from Russia, China, blah, 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 blah. This is another attack on people on the right. Not because people on the right are fans of Russia, not because they're fans of China, not because they're fans of cartels, because that's how they are labeled. It's how they are labeled. It is a weapon of the left to label people they don't like on the right as Russian agents. And again, what will it take for this board to sit there and say, you know what, maybe they are, let's take a look into them. And even if they know there's nothing there, the left is savvy. They know that just by bringing someone in to question them, the American people will be immediately swayed and their opinion will be completely different of that individual. There could be no there at all. They could know that there's no there. They can come out and say, hey, they're scot-free. They're good Americans. We spoke to them. They just have a differing opinion, but they are not in any way connected to Russia or any of our enemies. They are not a threat. And that would get swept under the rug. The only people that would cover it are people on the right. The left would not even cover it. So what would be known of that person? I keep on using Tucker as an example. What would be known of Tucker Carlson at that point? The government has all but confirmed that he is a Russian agent. And that's all any of the leftists that make stories against him would say. Tucker Carlson, who was previously interviewed by the Disinformation Governance Board about his connections to Russia. That's how they will lead every single time. So this is not good. This is a terrible thing. This is terrible. It's a way to stifle more free speech and a way to basically get people to get in line because you don't want the governance board to be coming after you and talking to you. Now do you? Now do you? Say what you're told to say, think what you're told to think. And if you come out against us, the governance board will come after you. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. I know it's always such a fun and positive time when you come to this show, but I appreciate anyone that comes and hangs out. Please give a like, share, follow, subscribe, rate 5 stars on Spotify and iTunes. Spread this word of mouth on socials. Go search for the Alex Cuesta Show. And I hope everybody, again, had a good weekend. Hopefully I'm back tomorrow. If not, there'll be an excuse. And I'll let you know next time I'm back on. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. So long, y'all.